7 of Girl, How'd You Get That Gig? For my partner, Amy G, I'm Celeste Gehring. And today we get to go behind the curtain and dive into the inner workings of a sports TV network. Welcome in Holly Glass Burgess. She's the Director of Strategic DEIB Partnerships, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And she's also the Director of Traffic at the New England Sports Network, also known as NESN. If there was ever someone who makes you feel like you belong, trust me, it is Holly. She's changing the game for rotational programs at NESN, and we don't know how she has the time, everyone, but she's also the president of Wise in Boston. So welcome in, Holly.
I'm actually retired from Wise in Boston.
Oh, you
Well, we're going to get into that, right? We're going to get into that. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for being here, Holly. I mean, this is really what our podcast is about. It was created to shed some light on women who are doing great things in the sports industry, and you're one of them. So we want to get kind of right into it. What would you describe are your daily duties as Director of Strategic DEIB Partnerships and Director of Traffic at NESN?
So my main role is Director of Traffic, which is building all the commercial formats, deciding where all the advertisers place, making sure what sales has sold is what gets executed on air so we get paid. The DEIB strategic partnerships has come into play because that's where my passion lies. And I'm very lucky to work for a company that has given me the space to grow. And that's exactly what I've done.
Gosh, that's so true, right? The space to grow.
Oh, I love that. Amy, when I went to NESN during the pandemic, everybody knows the story. Like I threw everything I could fit into my car. I had toilet paper, I had paper towels, I had soap because it was during the pandemic and everything was shut down. And so I was terrified. I had to find an apartment. And Holly was that one person who reached out. And it wasn't that fake reach out like, hey, how you doing, girl? It was that, hey, let's get to know each other. I'm here for you. Let's go grab a coffee. I want to explain what NESN's all about. She has a love for what she just said, DEIB. So, Holly, how did this role come about and how much influence did you have for creating it?
Well, it didn't exist. We'll go back to probably 2015. At the time, I had just come off being president of Women in Cable, and noticed that we had a real lack of just things for our women within NESN. We had 3 managers that were women that were in higher positions. And we were really the go-to for everything and everyone that was having struggles, was looking to grow within their, respective roles, had questions about NESN. And we looked at that and what we had to do with how many of those women that we actually were meeting with and how many that worked here that actually didn't reach out to us. So with that, we built, or we went to senior management and wanted to start like lunch and learns, which turned into us writing a 5-year DEI plan for the entire company. That was a learning experience for sure. But it was an awesome experience. So that's where everything took off.
It takes somebody like Holly, right? Like I remember with the Giants learning that my coworker for years, Stacy Slaughter, had actually written the maternity leave plan for the Giants. They didn't have one. In the 90s, they didn't have one.
No. We did this in 2015. We didn't have a maternity plan.
Yeah. Crazy.
And we had 2 women that were in higher levels that were in the process of getting married, planning families, and we didn't have the resources for them. We've been challenged as a company. We were about 25 to 27% women. And we've grown that over the years, right? So right now, Celeste, you're not going to believe this, we're up to about 40%,
wow,
which is absolutely crazy. I can say that I have an all-female staff, which is awesome. It is
They get a lot done, that staff. They
right?
get a lot done.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So those type of things, we have most definitely made strides. We still struggle with the retention piece. We're working on that. We've launched ERGs, which has been, that has done so much for the company just as a whole.
Holly,
We have,
what are ERGs? Just in case somebody listening doesn't know what that is.
so those are employee resource groups. So I think we have 5. We have a women's ERG, which is one, Women of Nesson, which we have now launched, and it's actually our platform that all of our women's sports are under. And that's something that is able to be sponsored, and we're able to actually take some of that sponsorship money, and that all that will get reinvested. So we are really building. And that came from the Women of Nesson. So we've been able to push and grow this brand, and it's pretty awesome.
It's beyond awesome. And I know, Celeste, we have to like kind of roll the clock back and get into Holly's journey, but I want to ask one question about this because it's fascinating to me that this happened in 2015. What was that evolution? And you get in this group and you're like, we have no plans for this and we need to write this and we're going to write a 5-year plan. Then who did you take it to and who approved it? Like that, because I'm fascinated by, how if it was men that didn't know that this didn't exist and how they reacted when you came to them with this, and were they all on board?
I don't know that I was necessarily in the room when, all that conversation got presented. However, we had a head of HR who was a female at the time. And I don't know, it's very possible that they were just like, we'll give them this project to do and see if they actually do it. And then we put so much work in it. I mean, we built a team. There was probably 5 or 6 of us that worked on this plan, and we reached out to other. We didn't build it from scratch, right? We reached out.
Template.
We reached out to the ESPNs, right? We reached out to our networks, and we used what they had already built, and then we made it work for us.
Yep.
What really surprised me the most was the fact that in that 3 to 5 year plan, how much of it we actually did and was able to accomplish. And you could look back. I mean, that was the most impressive part of the whole thing to me. That it's like, yes, in year 3 was when we started launching the ERGs, and we actually stayed on track and true to it.
Totally. Because you can like say, we need to have this group and we need to, progress. And it turns into just like a social group that gets together and, it's not being productive. And every single person we have on, Celeste from Nesson, I am so impressed with the culture that has been built there. Every single person, I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Do.
I know. Yeah. I know. Okay, so let's dial it back. We always like to kind of get like, the beginning to the end. We're very linear with our show. We have our own little template here as well. So going back, where did you grow up and how did sports enter your life? Did you play? Were you a fan? Was it a combo?
It was an accident.
Or that. I guess I should add that to my list. Did you fall into this?
I fell into television as a whole. So my mother owned a temporary and permanent placement business.
Oh.
And one of her clients was WLVI TV in Boston. And they had a 4 to 8 shift on their front desk. And if someone called in sick, my mother would pick me up from school. She would drive me in there.
I'm
like 15 years old at this point. And I would sit and I would do my homework. And, I was a people person back then. So I got to know everyone that I worked with. About 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, my mother said, if you think you're going to have fun with your friends and you're going to go out and you're going to party all summer, you're wrong.
I love your mom. Can she come talk to my 16-year-old?
Yeah, I didn't have a choice. I got suspended once and ended up spending but I got suspended at 7:30 in the morning my senior year of high school, and I was in someone's office at 8:30 working a full 8-hour day. So there was no play.
No.
It was, I've always had that strong work ethic, and it was
Mhm.
instilled by her for sure. I
Yeah.
don't know that I had a choice. So I did that, and I was there for probably 2 weeks, and someone in the department that I currently run came out and she said, "I just quit my job. You should take it." And I said, "I haven't gone to school yet." I was all set to go to Northeastern full time in the fall. And she's like, "Don't worry about it. They'll pay for you to go to school." So,
Whoa.
yeah.
What a great accident.
Right. Fast forward a couple of years, and there was an opportunity in Hartford. So I ended up making department head by the time I was 26.
Dang, girl.
So
I'm not usually speechless.
Yeah.
That is impressive.
I love your mom too. I love that she owned her own business, because talk about, being a role model and a trailblazer for that time period, right? Like, I remember my mom was like, I'm guessing we're around the same age. Me and Holly and Celeste, I know we are the same age. My mom couldn't have her own credit card. Like, that's the generation we're talking about right before us. She could not have a credit card without my dad's
she's pretty
signing
special.
off.
She's
She
pretty
is.
special. Yeah, she lives with me now.
Go, Mama. You can put her on the phones for a few hours.
I have.
I
trust me.
I bet.
Trust me.
I bet. Yeah. That's funny.
You got school paid for at Northeastern. What did you major in? And if you had to do it again, looking back, would you major in it? If yes, how did it help you today? If not, what would you have chosen instead?
So I did marketing. If I had to do something differently, I would have got into sales. So like that,
Right?
Lots of women say that.
We're all saying that, Holly.
I listened to the voices in my head that told me that I couldn't do the public speaking piece and that I couldn't stand up in front of a room. And, I most definitely, was my worst enemy.
Yep. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, sales is where the money is. That's like FYI, everyone. But we had Dawn from the Houston Rockets was on, and she's like, in charge of partnerships and stuff. And we talked about that issue that women really, it targets women are afraid to go into sales because of what you just said, Holly. We're insecure, or we're not confident that we can land the deal, or that we're going to look like we're schmoozing, or whatever it is. It's just, there's an uncomfortableness to it that we haven't quite gotten past. So I totally get that. Yeah. What was your first, well, so then I guess I should be listening a little bit better. So then after you went to Northeastern, you went back to the station to work?
No. I worked and went to school.
You worked and went to school.
I worked and went to school.
Okay. All right. So then you've had this great career at Nesson. I mean, you were a department head at 26 years old, just a baby.
So that was for Tribune.
Oh, that's for Tribune. Okay.
That was Tribune in Hartford. So I commuted for 6 years.
So let's go back to that.
Forth.
Yeah. So how did you end up, what's your journey getting to Nesson, and what were the jobs along the way?
So I started as a traffic assistant. I did that for a couple years. We had a new head of finance come in, and he took a liking to me, and he decided that I needed to work in accounting. And he brought me in to do accounts receivable. And that's where I learned that I did not belong in the finance department, and that it was not good for me or my psyche or anything else. And I turned from this person who, you know, was a people person and loved to go to work and loved what I did to somebody who cried all the time.
Oh.
And I got out of that as quickly as I could. So when the opportunity opened up in Hartford, you know, I had just gotten married also. So I ended up living part-time. I never moved. So my husband stayed here. I had family in East Hartford and I commuted back and forth for 6 years.
How long is that commute?
It's about 2 hours.
Each way?
Yes. I didn't do it every day. So I would go down on Monday morning. I would work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night I would drive home. Thursday morning I would drive back and then I'd come home on Friday night. And I did that for 6 years.
Woof.
Can I just jump in on the crying part because I've been there? And how did you find the strength to change that narrative for yourself? I think a lot of us get into a position, and this message that Celeste and I continue to tell, especially younger people, is like, when you find out there's something that you don't want to do, that's super powerful. And don't let that drag you down, because now you know, okay, I definitely need to stop doing this. But a lot of times we get stuck in that gray area and in the in between of I'm doing something I don't want to do and I can't get to something I want to do. How did you make that transition, and what advice would you give to somebody in that same spot? I just know I felt stuck. I'm not sure how you felt, but I felt stuck, and that was a very hard place to be.
So I think Celeste has probably heard me say this about a dozen times, because this is my, you know, when we do onboarding for new employees, it's part of my spiel. So it is so important that you love what you do, right? It is, you spend more time at work than you do with your friends and your family. And if you're struggling to get up every day and go to work, you're not doing the right thing. And you really need to do something else. You need to choose yourself in that situation and do something else.
And it's such an important conversation for women, especially Holly, because I know there's so many women out there, especially younger women, who, you know, a boss tells them they'll be great at this job, they'll make lots of money, right? We know accountants, we know people that are in these roles who stay in them forever because either the money's good or, you know, the boss has said you're great at this, and they want to please people. And so then they just stay in this job that they truly hate. So I love that you always bring that messaging forward, because it sounds so easy, right? Like, oh, all of us should pick jobs we love to do, but it's really not. Like Amy always says, you know, you have to find those jobs you don't like. You have to say yes to different jobs, see what you like, see what you don't like, and, you know, go in that direction of what you do like, weed out everything.
But you need to understand that I knew I wasn't good at it. I was not good at this. This was not an area that I was strong in. And I felt that. And when I went to Hartford as the traffic manager, I had a middle-aged white boss, right? And I'm 26 years old. Everybody else is, you know, 50 and above, and mostly white men. And it's my first, you know, experience with, you know, being on a leadership type of team. I've never managed anyone before. And he said to me one day, he goes, I have never met a traffic manager happier than you. I don't understand why you're so happy. And I said, I love this. I am good at this.
Well,
right. And I've always felt that way. Like this is it. I fell into it, but like, I get it. Like this is my space. This is where I belong.
hmm And you've kind of weaved in and out of that space at Ness and really kind of staying in that lane, but branching, here and there out of it. What do
Hmm.
you love so much about it? Like, kind of take us through it a little bit more because I think when people hear traffic, again, it's like figuring out how you're getting paid, the sponsorship, where everything's going within the programming.
Hmm.
But can you go into detail a little bit more? Like, what lights you up so much about it? Why would people want to go into it?
So most people, it's not something that they're going to teach you, right?
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
something you're going to go to school for. It's never even going to come up. As there's all kinds of areas of sports and television that, aren't necessarily,
So true.
you're not going to get at the university level.
Hmm.
Um, One of the biggest things that I love about traffic is that I'm always done and I'm always moving forward. So there's a sense of accomplishment every day. I complete something every day and that drives me and that fulfills me. Whereas working in accounting, I was never done. So I was never in a position where I was ahead because you couldn't get ahead. Like I was never going to collect all the money. There was no way
So
that any of
true.
that was there, right. There was no completion
Yeah,
thing.
you're chasing your tail.
Right. So I went now we don't go backwards. We're always moving forward and it doesn't matter. I mean, Celeste, this place gets crazy. I mean, we have crossover where we have the Red Sox and the Bruins playing and now I have the Pirates and the Penguins on top of it. So, we are, massively busy and
Hmm.
things, can get overwhelming. But I know I'm going to finish. And if I don't finish, I've run out of time and it's going to happen anyway.
It's true.
Right?
You know what I feel to be able to realize that you're good at something that you also like to do is really fortunate. It's like, I think a lot of us do something we're good at, but we don't necessarily love it. I think even down to the simplest things, like if you're working out, right? Am I good at the rower? Yeah. Do I like to do the rower? No. Like to find it's really important to have that combination of being good at something that you love to do, because that's where your happiness, it's like coming out of you. You're gushing with it. I love it.
But
If we,
that's where the rotational program came from too,
right.
right?
So
So,
let's get into that. Go ahead and explain what that is, because I remember when Celeste talked about that, and I had never heard of a rotational program, and this is great for young ones to listen to.
so we created we we've been through different iterations of it, of like how long it should be and so on and so forth. We've settled on a 12-month program. We have a couple different tracks. And what it does is it allows a recent graduate access to 3 different departments over the course of a year. So, and this actually just played out with one of our recent graduates that we hired. And it's so important again to figure out what it is that where you're strong and what you like, because what you think you like isn't necessarily, once you're doing it, it's not always the case.
Totally.
So we have a traffic, sales, marketing. So typically that person's and the I like to do 2 that really make sense for the company and 1 that is of interest to the new hire, right? So we hire you on for 12 months. We put you through the traffic department where I teach you the basics and how it all comes together. Then we move you over to the sales department for a couple months and you learn how the sales assistants work, how the account executives work, what it's like to go on sales calls, to
Mhm.
be in sales meetings, what they're focused on. You learn ratings and hot levels. Then we get into marketing and you get into our marketing department also handles our digital platform, right? So you're dealing everything from customer calls and satisfaction rates with the with our app
Mhm.
to you know, gifts for the players so we can get people in and actually, do interviews during like spring training and things like that, just like thank you type of things, to going to different events that they have planned and making sure that we have merchandise. So it's then there's our marketing reads. Like it does a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So it allows them to do that. And then we have a production type of
Rotational.
rotation that allows them to be in live, right? Be in remote, and then do our tape shows. And because, that it's a very different environment,
Yes.
and then you get into we have all these people that get into sports. Well, when does sports happens? Nights, weekends, holidays, right? So all of a sudden you're learning that, yes, I want to be in sports, but I don't want to work on nights, weekends, and holidays, right? So it gives them that opportunity. They get to feel different departments out, different management styles, which is huge, right? We all manage a little bit differently.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. God, I wish that existed when we were graduating.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was Amy teaches at Sonoma State. And so I was with her last week speaking to her class, and we did bring up the rotational program because there are a lot of leagues now that are doing these rotational programs, which again, great way to get your foot through the door. So how can college grads get into this, Holly? Like how do they apply at Nesson, or how do they get in?
So right now we do 2 per year, and they start in end of June, early July. So we put you through a year. And then ideally what happens is we find a job for you at the end. So once we get to about the ninth month, we're starting to, you've been in the 3 different departments. You have an idea of what they are. We look at what we have job opportunities currently open, and then see what works. And for both it has to be a business need, right? So it has to work for the company too. We're not creating positions for this. So there has to be a business need, but I have to tell you, it's been a great pipeline. And we'll pull you out of the program early. So if something opens up, and you're 9 months deep and you want to take that opportunity, you have that option too.
If somebody goes through the first round, let's say they did the marketing, traffic, sales, and they're like, it's not for me, any of them. Can they do a rotation with another grouping, or is it one and done?
No, I think we'd probably, we haven't had that happen. And where, I don't know if I'm in like my 3rd or 4th year deep into this. We have a very high success rate of, who's still here.
Sure.
A lot of times what we're doing is we have a high performing intern that we actually roll into the program.
That's right. What I was wondering.
That's the best. That's what we found is the best way.
Because that gives them that kind of like, okay, I think this is what I want to do versus just one shot. And I hope you find it. That's fantastic. And that's investing in your future. Like that's such a great investment that you guys are doing for your company.
I don't know. I mean, we still have several employees that are managers now that have been here for 25 years that started as interns.
That's great.
So, I mean, we've always been building that pipeline.
That's awesome.
And you're so hands-on with that pipeline, Holly. What questions do college students or interns ask you the most?
Mostly it is what opportunities, how do I get this? How do I get connected to this person? How do I make sure that, that my resume is the one that they're looking at, that I'm the person chosen? And it's the individuals who take the time and learn that networking piece early, right? Like I talk to classes all the time. I spend a lot of time. We have 3 main schools that we work with here. So the students, a lot of them know me personally. And it's the ones who take the time and do that natural networking when they're not just calling me when they want a job, right? Like I have one individual that I've been working with, and I will get him a job here. I am working very hard. I will get him a job here. But he does a podcast, and he constantly, at least once a month, he is sending me a text message and like check out what I'm doing and making sure that he's staying connected with me. So he's always in the forefront of, my thoughts when it's like we have this opportunity. And that's
Mhm.
how most of the individuals have actually turned into
Employees.
participants within the program. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's yeah, we preach that all the time to our students and through this podcast, like stay in touch, but don't always ask if the person the person who's mentoring you knows about a job. Just check in. Hope all is well. Just want to let you know where I'm at right now and have a great holiday or whatever it is. Like just have a little bit of etiquette involved in the process as well goes a long way with people who are in a position to hire or put you in touch with somebody who's hiring. We talked for a minute about WISE and that you're now retired as the president of WISE, but we do want to get into that role because it's a great organization and also it's a fantastic networking opportunity for people who join. And there are WISE chapters all across the nation. What is WISE to you? And, how did you get involved? Why? And what was that role of being president like for you?
So WISE was brought to me. I got involved with WISE right after I came off of being involved with Women in Cable.
Mm-hmm.
And I came on as the treasurer, and I was really I had joined WICT because I didn't know anybody on the cable side of the business. And that's exactly what it was. It was the programmers and it was the cable networks.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for several years. And, my initial meeting, I walked in, I didn't know anyone. And, couple years later, and I probably, would know 80% of the people in the room at that point. So coming off of that and looking for other opportunities, WISE gave me that access to the other side of the business. So WISE is the sports teams
Mm-hmm.
and then the networks and also the brands,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you can work in sports and be in shoes or banking or,
Yeah.
there's so many different opportunities. So I have made so many great, and I'm what I call a master networker. I love to network. I love to meet people. I love to connect with people, which is part of, why, when Celeste joined the company, I was like, let's get coffee, let's meet up, anything I can do. I strongly believe in that, that exchange, right? Like you build these relationships. I have people for everything pretty much in every state.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether, and I say guy, but they're not actually guys, right? You got a
Yeah.
hotel guy, you
Yeah.
have a car guy, you have a this, I have somebody, regardless of where I can go,
Yeah.
where I am, that I can connect with. WISE gave me that within the sports industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I have made connections across the country at all the different sports. I went to Pittsburgh, so we launched Pittsburgh, and I got a text message that said, "Hey girl, if you need a place to stay, you can stay with me." And I'm like, "Who is this?" I was like, "Who do I know in
It's one of your
Pittsburgh
guys.
that's offering me a place to stay?" And it is the president of WISE from Pittsburgh. She's
There you
like, "You
go.
can you can stay with me." And I met her a couple years ago in Vegas, and we have stayed in touch. And, we obviously have meetings and things like that, but, we built a lasting friendship back then that, years later, I'm going to Pittsburgh and I see her regularly now that I'm in Pittsburgh, and I have her name saved now.
What are the qualifications to join WISE if somebody is listening and they're like, oh, first of all, it's Women in Sports and Entertainment, so it's an acronym. I probably should have said that to begin with. But how can someone join should they want to?
So that's the first thing I tell all my college students is it's $40, I believe, for a student membership, and it is worth its weight in gold. Just for the, not only like the programs that they offer, so they have everything from speed mentoring, they have a mentor program. They have all kinds of different regular programs that they do at all the different chapters, but getting involved with the board, right? Like if you're a college student, volunteer 100%. It will connect you to people. I have somebody working for me right now, and it was because she volunteered at WISE. I had met her at one of the universities that I work closely with, and I'm like, I'm gonna hire her. And when we had one of the rotational openings, I was like, I'd love for you to get you involved in this program. And she didn't make it through the traffic rotation because I had an opening. I said, you're really good at this. What do you think? Do you and she took the job, so she's currently working for me now. But she was one of our volunteers for WISE.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, does WISE have a national conference every year that people can go?
Yes, they do the symposium. It's in March.
Okay.
It's right around International Women's Day.
Okay. Because
And
I
they do
know,
that.
for me, for example, I've been a member of WISE in Los Angeles and also in Boston. And you're right. There are so many people that you meet, whether it's brands, right, sports teams. It's not just the people in the networks. And the closest thing that ever to me came close to that was like the women's ESPN weekends that rotated between the West Coast and the East Coast. And it seems just like a sorority and a sisterhood of WISE where women can come together from all over the place and say, hey, you're in WISE? Okay, great. Like, do you know so and so, or do you know this member? So again, it's a great networking opportunity for all of you out there.
Mhm.
What do you think when people are going to join WISE, what should they look to get out of it? Is it just the networking, or what else should they look to get out of it?
Anytime with any organization, the more you put in, the more you get out. So, it's completely up to you. But like volunteering, I mean, you can go to an event, right? You can experience it. You can meet a bunch of different people. But if you're not connecting with them afterwards and starting to build those more meaningful connections, what did you really get out of it? So, I really believe you need to put the work in. You need to do follow up. Again, volunteer. And it's everything you can, help with check-in or setting up or breaking down. They need people to do pretty much everything. And it typically will get you a free ticket. So a lot of times the companies, depending on where but depending on where you work, they'll take care of the price of the ticket. And none of the tickets are high priced. Like they make it very reasonable. But it's certainly worth it.
Yeah, definitely. We're all about joining that for sure. Okay, we're about ready to wrap. So you did good. Remember before we got on, you're like, I don't know about this, but you made it through. And we're on our last question. And it's always the same question we ask our guests because it comes from the heart. And that's just, what's your best piece of advice that you live by? Either somebody told you or you dole out and pass along to aspiring sports journalists or sports industry employees?
This was told to me when I was in high school by one of my friend's mothers. If you have 5 friends, Whether you think you have more or not, you have 5 true friends. That might be somebody that you work with. The 5 people may change. Not everyone is your friend. And if you look at your hand and you're counting your 5 and you're like, no, I have 10, you don't. People that you work with, and I'm not saying, I mean, I work with my best friend. So I'm not saying you can't have that connection, but just be very, very careful who you're sharing with. Build relationships, but keep them professional.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good for this industry for sure. Yeah. Holly, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
I hope you ladies have a great day.
You too.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you.
Good get, Celeste.
Oh, isn't she great?
You have a good crew from Nesson.
She's
Wow.
great. She's really good friends with Cosmina. So those two just hit it off and they're a bunch of fun.
I can only imagine, right? Yeah. All right. So who is up next? What's on tap?
Next up, Amy, is Sandy Nunez, Vice President and Management of On-Air Talent at NFL.
Wow. That's a big one. Way to go. Got your little fishing rod. Got her. I'm very excited to meet her. So everybody remember that we have giveaways, and for a chance to win some of our great prizes, you can just follow us on Instagram. The handle is at Girl Gig Podcast. And also you need to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. Girl, how did you get that gig? And you will be entered to win one of our prizes, and it's free to subscribe and follow.
That's right, Amy. We'll announce our next winner soon on Instagram. Again, that handle is at Girl Gig Podcast.
Follow, 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 follow. Okay, for Celeste, Gary, and I'm Amy G. And until next time, go get that gig. Give it to me, Celeste. There it is.
Oh.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Are we stopping down and doing BizRiz, or
I'll just clip it off.
Just clip it off. Okay. All right. So it's Maggie and
what are some things that I can do to really utilize and take advantage of these extra years of school to set myself up the best I can to enter a career in sports, specifically sports and media? So she's going to grad school.
Yeah.
What are some things that I can do to really utilize? Okay.
Well, based off of what we just talked about, right?
Yeah. Internship,
Okay.
vocational programs.
Networking groups. Okay. All right. You ready? What episode are we on? 37?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I don't need to say it, but just so Okay, here we go. In 3, 2. Welcome in everybody to this edition of BizRiz Jazz Hands. All right, we have a question from Maggie about, I want to start that whole thing again. I don't want to say, what do I want to say? Maggie, who's going to grad school, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Start again. Sorry. In 3, 2. Welcome in everybody to this edition of BizRiz. We got our jazz hands going and we are ready to answer a question from an aspiring sports employee. And what am I doing? What am I doing? Sports industry employee. Fuck. You can have all these, Amber. You can have all these. I kind of wish I was still in Hawaii. I'm just
I was gonna say that slow like
sports industry employee. I gotta get back on track. All right. Take 3, 3, 2. Welcome in everybody to this edition of BizRiz. We know you love the jazz hands. We're never going to do it without it. And we do have a really cool question coming in from Maggie, who's going to attend grad school, and she's interested in working in the sports industry. So let's hear her question. Got through that one. Okay. All right. So here we go. Pick up in 3, 2. Okay, so Maggie really getting into it. Celeste wanting to know, what are some of those extra things she can do and really be efficient with her time over the next few years while she's going to grad school before she enters the real world of work. What do you got for her?
Well, I think you nailed it on the head about being efficient with her time, Amy, because in my opinion, you really need to set up a strategy. How are you going to network? What specifically are you looking to do? And then we had on Holly Glass Burgess of Nesson, who is the manager of traffic there, and she set up this great rotational program at Nesson where early grads can come in, they get paid for a year to rotate between three different departments. One, I believe, was traffic sales and marketing. The other is in production. You got to learn remote, studio, ops, all those different things. To really get into those rotational programs early is really key. So my advice to her as a grad student is really figure out that strategy of your networking. Who do you want to network with? What jobs do you want? And try to network with those people.
Yeah, I love this rotational program that Holly talked about, and she actually said it's in a lot of different um, organizations. So looking for a rotational program is huge while you're in, getting your undergrad degree as well. But if you're going to grad school, you're going to be a little that much more focused on what that rotation is that you want to try and tackle. And adding to that, internships are huge. And Holly mentioned, because I asked her, I said, is it one shot and done? Like you do this rotation program, and what if you didn't like it, the three, or, departments that you worked for?
Right.
And she mentioned, well, often we take an intern into the rotational program. So you've already had time to experience something at the organization that you're trying to work at, and then you can focus in a little bit more. So 100% internships, rotational program. And then I would just say looking at networking groups like WISE, that we talked about with Holly, where she used to be the president of that. She was the president of the Boston chapter, but there's chapters all across the United States. Bossy, if you're in the Bay Area, right? Which is the Bay Area Women's Sports Institute. So it's like looking at, especially when you're a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and a little bit more sure of what direction you want to go in, then that networking component is huge, whether that's in an organization or groups outside where you're getting to know people who put you at the top of their radar when they see an opening, and then staying in touch with them. So follow up, follow up, follow up. That's the biggest key. Is once you get into these groups, you find the people who are doing what you want to do, stay in touch with them, right? And as one of our guests said, then you go in for the kill. So it's like my favorite line ever. Not literally, don't do it literally, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think all of that's super helpful. And I hope that that helped answer your question. Good luck for sure. That's super exciting, grad school. And if you have a question about the sports industry that you would like our many, many years of experience to give you some advice on, send it in to us. We always love getting a video of you, and we will answer it on the next episode of Biz Riz. See you, everyone.
Bye.